What's the deal, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you. I hope you leave here with more tips, tricks, and insights to any and all projects that you may be working on. My name is Antoine Banks Williams. I am an aspiring filmmaker. I am a lover of this craft with a deep respect for the journey. Today, for this video, what we're going to be doing is making like a part 2 to my most viewed video on my channel thus far, where I briefly covered 3 key elements to filmmaking, and I will link that here. Make sure you guys go check that out. And what does that look like for the purposes of today? This video, we're gonna be taking a close look at what you've seen shot at the top of this video, and we're gonna examine and critically analyze how I used each 3 of those key elements to build on the shot, to make each shot a little more dynamic and cinematic with little to no gear. So let's cover our objectives for today. Our objective is to take stills from the clip that you've seen at the top of this video and examine the depth and the composition. We are going to identify how the foreground, middle ground, and background elements are used to create a sense of depth, guiding the viewer's eye and enhancing the visual storytelling. Then we're going to break down lighting techniques. We're going to identify the lighting style, if it's natural lighting, external lighting, high key, low key, etc., and discuss how it influences the scene's tone, the mood, and the overall emotional impact. Then we're going to explore camera movements. We're going to highlight the specific camera movement, if it's handheld, dolly, pan, tilt, and the role of the camera movement that helps focus the direction, build tension, and to convey the dynamics in each character. Okay, before I dive in, I will say this. I will be doing my best to make sure that I identify the foreground, mid-ground, and background with a 1, 2, or 3. So let's dive into still number 1. And I would say her face is the foreground. Like, her face dominates the frame. Her face dominates the frame here. It's off-centered. It has these beautiful soft shadows, which is like adding a lot to the depth and the dimension. Like, the tight frame is showing that there's some kind of emotional turmoil, or that we should be really focused on her. The mid-ground, I would say, is about here too, and like this shadow kind of transition between light here and darkness here is also creating depth. And it's like this subtle layering of like concealment or some kind of inner struggle is a really, really beautiful thing. And 3, the background, I would say, is right here, and that's just like soft blur kind of bokeh that we have going on a lot back here. It's a window, and it is creating space and contrast in a way that is making my focus be on her face. So that in itself is creating great depth, with her face being the foreground, her hair kind of neck area being the midground, and this window being the background. And the lighter tones of this natural frame right here, it's guiding my eyes, and it should guide the viewer's eyes towards her, and I think it did that really, really well. Now, breaking down this lighting, this is low-key lighting, and we had one source of light right here that was right out of frame. You couldn't see it, but it gave us these drastic and dramatic shadows here, but that in itself helped create this beautiful Rembrandt square here on under her left eye. It enhanced like the mystery and the emotion throughout the entire scene. So all of these shadows here like really played well in the composition, and it emphasized the lack of detail and stuff here, emphasized her face and where I wanted folks to view and pay close attention to. In the movement, for the movement, I would only did a slow pan from left to right, and this was a pan. And that was it. Like, the stillness in this frame was enough to be captivating. And you also have, thinking about composition, you also have light, dark, light. That just creates, and it gives us an opportunity to hold really, really beautiful framing. Yeah, that's it. Quick breakdown. Let's get to still number 2. Breakdown for still number 2. I would say 1 right here. The young woman, the profile who's leaning against the wall, like, dominates the frame, and it's creating a great kind of sense of intimacy and isolation from just this perspective. It's really, really beautiful. This woman right here, number 2, with the arm extended, is the mid ground. And with her arm being extended the way that it is, it creates like this extra dynamic of like a need for connection and some kind of relationship between them both. And the bars back here, these dimly lit bars, is 3 is the background. Yeah, I love this shot. For the light, the light, there's backlighting here. This was so interesting about this lighting. There's 2 characters in one scene, in one shot, but with one source of light and the perspective of both of the characters, you get two kind of relationships to the light. So for this woman in the foreground, you have her backlit, and you get this beautiful light spilling against the wall. You get this clear light that's on the floor and kind of spilling into the cell, and it creates this silhouette of her that is very, very beautiful. And for the subject, for the woman in the mid-ground, you get this beautiful side light that's just giving you a little highlights of the nose, the neck, her arm. You can see highlights on her fingertips, the side of her body, her shoulder. It just created a very, very interesting and beauty to this relation, whereas you have one subject who is almost completely dark, and then you have one with a little light on her, and it creates a dynamic to the scene that is really, really beautiful. The contrast of the light it separates each character. It emphasizes like the physical distance between them. You have one character who is, again, in the foreground, so she's right there up on you, and then you have another one that has much more distance but is still wanting to be closer, not necessarily in that position, but you can tell she wants a connection. The gesture in the connection is another beautiful thing that just brings dynamic, and I think I will tie that into movement. So having her hand extended, before we get to talking about how the camera moved, having her hand extended is movement in itself in a frame, and that also aids in the storytelling. There's another beautiful aspect of this light and how the light spills back here just as it does on this wall. So you have dark, light, dark, light, dark, light. You have this way that composition is being created, just having 2 subjects in one frame, one closer, one further, but having that foreground, middle ground, background with one. Natural light spilling into the cell just enhances the overall experience of this scene. Very beautiful. And there was no movement. There was only handheld, me just holding on to the camera, trying to be as small as I possibly could in the corner to achieve this shot. Again, the negative space, these empty walls right here emphasizes like the loneliness, the coldness, the separation. All of this right here is very, very beautiful, and it just helps keep all of our focus on what's happening in this area between these two characters. Depth, lighting, movement. Let's go. But before I go any further, if you have found anything useful about this video, please do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you hit that notification bell, because I will be uploading more of this content, and I want to make sure that it gets directly to you when it's uploaded. I appreciate all of you for everything that you do. Much love and respect. So let's dive into still number 3. Okay, still number 3. 1. This young lady right here is in the foreground. The foreground is out of focus. You see the hands being raised. It creates a dynamic frame, right? It creates focus here, emphasizing this character back here. This character back here, folks, right along here and here, I would say they are the mid-ground, and my friend back here who is in focus is the background. And this is a different kind of framing, and it is almost a reverse to the other frames. The manual focus is on the background, not the foreground. Usually the background is in, like all the way in the distance, so you can't see anything and you don't need to. But for here, I really wanted to create more sense of like loneliness and isolation. So only having one person being in frame was the reason for that. The lighting, again, this is soft, diffused lighting coming from this window here, and it's spilling all the way in. The light is spilling all the way in, and you get these subtle pieces of light here. You get subtle light on the faces here. You get light here. You get light here. It's spilling all the way in. But again, you get this beautiful soft light on the main subject in the back. And the light is helping focus on her and not the people in the foreground or the middle ground. For this movement was from right to left on a dolly, and it was a slow tracking shot. The tracking gave us an opportunity, a unique opportunity, to pass through folks in like this almost kind of chaotic movement sense, but you only have one person who is still in focus, like not being affected or not in tune with like the way of the world or how things are actually happening. To have the foreground blurred and out of focus adds this great sense of depth, and it suggests like distraction and or puts emphasis on being lost. And that like in itself like enhances the character and the narrative. So again, you have the blurred faces here in the foreground. You have these faces, you have this face in the foreground, you have this face in the midground, and you have the subject that has been framed really beautifully in the background using natural light, one light source, actually two, because it's another one further in the front, but all side lighting, natural lighting, and it's just creating a beautiful frame. And again, you have light, dark, light. You can see these patterns repeated in the different sense in every shot. Okay, that's all I have for today, folks. Now let's do a quick recap on what we covered in this video together. In a nutshell, we covered how depth creates interest in a frame. We covered how lighting can enhance and create tone, mood, and emotion in a frame. We covered how movement can enhance the perspective or the experience of the viewer if we're shooting in between something, if we're shooting through something, if we want to be closer or further away. How the camera movement is just as important as how the subject is moving. And when you incorporate all three of these key components, you can make something super beautiful, very dynamic, and worthy to be on the biggest stage that we can possibly think of. So, I think you guys did very well. I enjoyed myself tonight. Thank y'all. You know what? It was super foggy when I came in here, and what I think I might do, I might take my camera and just go film something. If I do, I'll put it at the end of this video. I need to shoot in the fog, and we need to keep doing what it is that we are doing with little to no gear. Again, all I had was my dolly other than my camera, so no external lights. Everything that I shot was in natural light. Everything that I shot was either handheld or on a dolly. So that's stuff that you guys can do. Again, I want to encourage all of you to pick up your camera and shoot your shot. Until the next one, y'all, I'm gonna go see if this fog is still out here.